Hi there, I'm Des.
And I'm Tim, and together Des and I head up the men's ministry Momentum Australia.
Momentum has multiple functions, but primarily our aim is to help men to succeed in life, to do life better.
We run a weekly radio show that goes all around Australia where we talk about anything and everything that relates to men.
And you know, we encourage men to do life in community, to do life with other men where we can be accountable, we can be welcomed, we can be open and honest about what's happening in our world.
We'd love you to have a look around our website. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find a bunch of resources to help you on your journey and all of our previous episodes and topics.
We thank you for your interest in Momentum Australia, and we hope you enjoyed this video today.
Alrighty, it is Momentum. Welcome to this week's show. So good to have you with us. It is just Tim and Des this week, and Des, this is pretty cool. I actually really enjoy just the two of us having a show. No disrespect to any of the guests, but it's nice for us just to have the two of us and banter around a subject this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. It makes good fun. We enjoy it, and we take subjects that are really important and we unpack them and so forth, and that's really cool. I really enjoy it. I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to do this and speak into men's lives. It's so good. And while we're doing that, let me just mention our website. All the previous podcasts are all on there. All useful YouTube information is all on there. The links to our own YouTube's on there. And that's momentumaustralia.org. So you give us feedback, questions, and if you feel led to help us financially, that would be amazing. And also our care line, sorry, I'm not trying to take over the whole conversation.
Go, Des, go.
is 1-800-000-MEN, which is 636. Guys, if you're doing life on your own and you need a safe and confidential conversation, as we say every week, please reach out to that care line. It's interesting that somewhere between 50 and 60 men every month are reaching out to our care line, and that is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so it's available 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., 1-800-000-636.
Very cool. You mentioned the YouTube channel, which of course you can find at momentumaustralia.org. And look, Momentum exists to help you listening right now, to help you. Des and I have done some journeys. You know, we've had some stuff happen in our lives. We've learned some stuff the hard way. Certainly don't profess to be perfect and we've got it all together at all, which is why we do generally get guests on the show to talk about stuff that is relevant to people just like us and you, to help us, you know, just to help us to go, hey, maybe we can tweak this. Maybe we can do this better. Maybe you've had this thing in your life way too long and you just want it out of your life once and for all. That's why we exist, to encourage you on your journey as a man, as a husband, as a father, etc., etc. And again, the Momentum Care Line exists for you to have a safe space. If you don't have a safe space, you've got a safe space with the Care Line to have one of those conversations and maybe start the ball rolling and start the journey of healing, Des, which is really a lot of guys too. That's
really cool. Let me just say that Tim is a lot closer to being perfect than I am. I just thought I'd better say it right up. Right up. So one of the things we hear a lot about in our world is intentionality. And what does it mean? What does it look like? And how can we apply it in our lives?
Good question, Des. I mean, the truth is that what we just talked about there, all of that takes intentionality. And that's our topic this week. So we're going to start with maybe a definition of intentionality, because again, it does get bandied around a fair bit. A definition of intentionality says being intentional means being purposeful and deliberate in everything we do. It involves setting clear goals, focusing on priorities, and making conscious decisions.
I mean, it's an interesting thing just to start off with, in that, you know, we say we're purposeful and deliberate in everything we do. What does that actually look like? It doesn't mean that you're serious all the time and you're 100% focused on intentionality, whatever that looks like. It means that it is, you know, a guiding principle in your life, I guess. So, you know, one of the things, I mean, the character of an individual and what an individual does, it requires for that individual to have a couple of things. And one of them is obviously to have goals. You know, we talk regularly about having goals in your life. Alongside those are desires, things that we think we need in our lives, but also standards. So what are the template standards that we have in our lives? We need to have those. And the select behaviors that are in the service of attaining those goals. So they guide us. There's no point in having goals that lead us one way, but our actions and desires and so forth are going another way. That's not compatible, right? So, yeah.
I mean, there's so much in that, Des, when you sorry to jump in, but I
No.
mean, let's unpack that a little bit, because I mean, that's really the foundation for all of this, right?
Mm.
So let's go back to the being purposeful and deliberate. When we wake up every day, I think unless we have that sense, intentionality, bigger picture, but then how does that boil down? If unless I have a sense of what I want to achieve today, where I'm going today, what are the key things I need to be doing today, how I want to think today, how I want to operate, how I want to show up in life, unless I'm intentional about thinking that way, we will default back to whatever we've always been or done.
Yes.
And as you say, if you do the same things, you're going to get the same results.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it boils down to is there been some thought around being purposeful and deliberate around certain areas of my life. And then what you said there, following back off that, having the goals, the desires, the standards, that's cool. That's the starting
Mm.
point. Think about it. Where do I want to go? What does that want to look like? But if
Yeah.
I'm not matching my behaviors, my character, who I am, how I'm showing up, if they're not matching, I'm misaligned, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what I want, the goals that I set in place. If I don't have the character and the discipline and the things set in place and the habits to be able to do that, I'm not gonna get where I potentially want to go.
And it's a deliberate choice. We all know the phrase learned behavior.
Mm,
And our learned behavior may be something like, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is talk to my Heavenly Father. The
right.
second thing I do is read his.
Mm,
And so, I mean, they become learned behavior, and they
mm,
become part of that intentionality that we have in our lives. And that changes our whole day. It changes our whole week, changes our whole life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When I think about why this is important, here's some thoughts about this, because I think, I mean, I've just turned 50. You're a few years down the track.
Oh, nice.
Um,
I love the way you said that.
That was delicately put,
Yeah,
delicately
that was
put, more
great.
mature, a little bit further down the track, just a little. But I mean, for me, if I'm really honest and vulnerable, and we try and do that on Momentum, is up until the age of 38, I didn't think too much about stuff. I mean, I was
Mm,
following what I thought was the lead of my Heavenly Father, but there was still a lot of stuff in my life that I hadn't really investigated and wasn't being intentional about.
mm.
And I think now at the age of 50, you reach the milestones, the 40, the 50, the 60, and you realize that you're on the clock.
Yeah,
And I think that can be the midlife crisis, or the wake up call that we need to
yeah,
actually go, right, now I'm going to actually live with more intentionality to make use of the time that I've got less. So why is intentionality important? My thought is this: being intentional means making deliberate choices, right? To it actually reflects what's important to us,
that's true.
right? Because when you
Mm,
start making those choices, when you actually sit and think about it and go, what is important to me? How do
mm.
I want to spend my time? Bigger picture, what is the impact that I want to have with my life? Right. And if I'm not intentional about that, I'll just drift and settle and drift and settle, and stuff might come along and it's okay, but I don't really have a point that I'm
Yeah.
focused towards.
Uh,
Becoming intentional helps us maintain a positive mindset, reach goals, experience more clarity, be more present, increases our focus and commitment, and brings more purpose and meaning to our lives. And I think that's the key thing. It
Yeah.
brings more
And there's a
purpose.
bigger picture outside that as well. One day, probably more for me rather than you, we're going to face our Creator,
Yeah.
and we have to give an account of how we have served the Lord, over the times we've been saved. And that's really something that we don't talk about, but
Mm.
it's something that we need to. I mean, doing life well is great.
Yeah.
Sowing into other people's lives is great, and so forth. But at the end of the day, we'll be accountable.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when I get into the men's group spaces, one of the
Mm.
things I often talk about, and we've talked about this before, is legacy, because we
Yes.
often don't
Good
talk about
word.
legacy, right? And for me, at the age of 50, again, I'm like, the sooner and the earlier and the younger you are, when you work out what the call is on your life, or what you're
Yeah.
passionate about, or what you feel God's leading you to, if you're a Christian, the sooner you figure that stuff out, the better, because then you
Yes.
don't waste, in inverted commas, time. And I know that some of us have to do journeys, and God can use the journeys and turn the journeys around, and that's okay. But I'm big on people in their late teens, even, and early 20s, going, who do you think you are right now? Like, what do you think God's calling you to? What do you love doing? What are you passionate
Yeah.
about? What are the things that just come easy to you that would
Yeah.
indicate they're gifts on your life that God's given you to use. The sooner you figure that stuff out, the clearer the picture is about where you want to head. And you can make more impact sooner in life. For you and I, Des, it's been a little later down the track partly because we came to faith later,
Yeah.
and partly because we just didn't get our act together in time.
Probably more of that than the former.
So I'm really keen on guys, and if you're listening, figuring out what's the legacy I want to leave, and then reverse engineer that and go, right, what do I need to do, or who do I need to be that person to leave that legacy that I want to leave?
And it's two parts that, as you rightly, well, it's actually three parts. The two extreme parts fit into the one. So there's, your family life, your home life, the people you engage with. How do you engage with them intentionally from a Christian perspective, from a faith perspective? And then there's your calling, right? And that could be God's calling you to be whatever you do in the workplace, but whatever that is. And then those two come together to be intentional about life. All aspects of your life blend together, and you serve the Lord in that way.
Yeah. We've got some keys we're going to look at. And then we've got, if we get time in the second part of the show, we've got some thoughts around how we can apply this stuff into every area of most areas of our lives. I think we've covered, or we're going to cover in the prep here. And there might be something we've left out, but it'll give you just some ideas of, okay, what's the practical outworking? I hear what you guys are saying. How do I practically outwork this stuff and apply this in my life? So five ways to practice intentionality. And number one, choose what's important to you. To act with intention in life, we first must know our values. I mean, all of this stuff then requires us to, Des, sit down, be quiet for a time, and actually sit and work out what's important to us. And I don't know about you, but I didn't do this until later in life. I kind of thought about it, but I didn't really sit down and nut down and go, actually, is that just something that I thought was important, or my parents told me was important, or I'm still living off something from 20 years ago that, is outdated where I'm at right now? What's actually important to me where I'm sitting right now?
And also, you might be surprised at what you write down.
Yeah.
Because what you think are your values may not be your values.
Yeah.
Somebody once said somewhere, your character portrays your values. And there's a lot of truth to that. The next one, of course, is to seek and create environments for exercising your intentions. That's so important too. And that's so broad. I mean, that is choose your friends. Choose those people you associate with. Choose those people you worship with, whatever that looks like. The whole environment of your life. What does it look like?
Seek and create environments for exercising your intentions. I like that. So you're seeking them out, but also you are a part, or you're creating that yourself.
Yeah.
Before I forget it, I just want to go back a point, just in case I forget to do this. I had a coach do this with me not too long ago, and it's getting back to the important thing, where the first thing, which is choose what's important to you, right? I want to just say to the guys, do this. This is powerful. She did this with me, and this was profound, right? Ask yourself why 5 times in a row. So if you go, what's important to me? What's your first answer? And then go, why? Okay, why?
Why is that important to me?
You actually get down to the very, very core, and you'll understand, like, when you look at the first, what you thought was that, you go 5 times down and you really get to the core of why that thing is important, or whatever it may be. And you go, oh, okay. It's absolutely powerful. If you do that in areas of your life 5 times, ask why, you get the answer, and then ask why 5 times. Powerful.
Wow, that's great advice.
Really profound.
I've never done that, and that's challenging. A challenge for me personally.
I think I first heard it with Dean Grazioso, who is a famous kind of entrepreneur guy, and I heard it with him, and she actually did it with me. She demonstrated it to me with something I was struggling with, and again, when I boiled down to the crux of where I went, oh.
Yes. Whoops. Okay, very quickly, that next one is something that guys in particular find it difficult to do, and that is to say no when something doesn't align with our values, because our values are our rock. They are core to who we are, and we must be true and faithful to those. So be prepared to say no when something is uncomfortable with our values.
Of course, to do that, you've got to know what your values are. And
exactly. That's the first point.
Right?
Yeah.
And then not be afraid to say no.
Yeah.
Be aware, be self-aware, and be present. I mean, these are huge keys generically in life. Being aware of stuff, being self-aware is huge, guys, and we certainly
Yeah.
encourage that. Be self-aware about who you are, your triggers, you know, your good points, your strengths, your weaknesses, things that could trip you up, temptations, but also being present in the moment. Right?
Mm.
Being present in the day. I'm not dwelling too much on the past, nor am I thinking 5 years ahead all the time. I'm actually enjoying the moment and being present,
Yeah.
fully engaged with the moment. That's huge.
Yeah, and also for men, I mean, we all live busy lives and so forth,
Mm,
but avoid a too full life. It's
right.
so easy to get so wrapped up that you don't have time to spend with God, and you don't have time to pray, and you
Mm,
don't have time to read His Word, for example.
mm.
And so your life suffers when you do that. Yeah.
I think, you know, we've talked about work-life balance, but I think if we're really honest, and even if I'm honest myself, coming into 2024, I was like, I carried too much last year. I'm
Mm.
trimming my life a little bit this year. And that's going to look a little different for everybody because we've all got different scenarios and
Mhm.
whatever. But I think if you're already sort of a third into the year or whatever, and you're going, man, like I'm already
Yeah.
looking forward to Christmas. I can't wait for that end of year
Yeah.
break.
But
Like,
never mind, Christian, I'm looking forward to Easter.
or Easter. But you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
if you feel
Yeah.
like you're constantly spinning your wheels and you know then you got too much on your plate.
Yeah.
And it is important to stop and rest. And you may need to rejig your schedule and actually put in some downtime and family time
Yeah.
and not feel guilty about it, which is a key for a lot of us. Look, this is such a key, it's such a key area of our life because let's be honest, when we start applying intentionality right across the board, things change, things happen.
Mm. Yeah, it certainly does. And when you look at intentionality in terms of what we do every day,
Mm,
there are five things, five levels
mm,
of intentionality that we need to focus on. And the first one, of course, is what do we do? Yeah, are we intentional about what we do?
mm,
And that affects every area of our life.
yeah. What
Yeah.
we do. Number two is what we speak. And you know what? I mean, there's all sorts of books out there about the power of your words. And you know, I mean, the Bible's very big on what you speak. Proverbs 18:21, the tongue is the
Yeah.
power of life and death. I mean, what's coming out of your mouth? What are you speaking? Are you even
Mm.
intentional about your speech?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, again, and I'm guilty of this. Some of my stuff is very negative, uh,
Yeah.
predominantly about myself, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and my wife will catch me and go like, you need to change some of that stuff that's coming out of your mouth. I'm like,
Wow, you got a good wife, man. That's
I
really
do.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keeps me on
And
my
of course,
toes.
the next one is, and as underlines the rest of them, is what do we believe? What do
Yeah,
you believe about the world around you? What do you believe about your faith? What do
yeah,
you believe about people you share life with? It's so key as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What you believe, and of course, what you think. What's happening between the ears, Des, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
important. And again, we
Yes.
can often be our own worst critic in our heads. And we talked about that earlier in the year
Yeah,
with
we did.
about inner critic. Have a listen to that because it is huge. Often we'll be mulling over and stuff in our heads that is so negative and toxic. And that comes out of our mouth at times or in our behaviors and patterns. And until we clean that up, as I say, the stinking
Yeah.
thinking between your ears,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
And
you're going to have some challenges.
And one of the things that I don't know how I learned this or thought about it when I first became a Christian was um, the fact that the Holy Spirit, God,
Mm,
indwells us. In my simple looking at my life, everything that I do, God hears. Everything I see,
mm,
God sees. He's indwelling me.
mm,
Everything I think, He knows. Everything I feel, He knows.
mm,
And so that in itself should guide us to
mm,
live a totally different life.
mm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a person of faith, absolutely. That's a great way to think of it, Des, and a great reminder too.
Mm.
Everything I think, see, say, touch, feel, whatever's in my
Yeah.
heart, the Holy Spirit's already there, thinking, watching, observing, being with me along that journey.
Yeah. Saying, my goodness, why is he doing that?
Not this again.
And
Again.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, look, we
Yeah, in
are
a
talking
serious way. Yeah.
intentionality days. Let's in the sort of 10 minutes we've got left. Let's just for the guys listening right now, right? Let's I'm shuffling on my chair so I can get more intentional with where we're going now, because
Good man.
this is really the crux of it. And we didn't want to do the show and just kind of throw a lot of stuff out there and then not give you some practical outworkings of how you can actually apply this stuff into your
Yeah.
life. What does it mean to be intentional with these certain areas of my life? So we've got a few. We're going to rattle through them, and hopefully this will just give you some idea and maybe some stuff you can apply for the rest of the year to be a bit more intentional with your life. So let's start within life in general. How do you be intentional with life? Well, I think it starts with, Des, as you were talking about before, defining what's important and then setting some goals. Now, they might be big life goals. There might be more smaller goals around finances, around health and fitness and whatever. Of course, there might be some regular goals that you can keep yourself on track with. So you
Yeah.
break the big goal down into smaller, achievable chunks
It's
and
good.
whatever. Those sorts of things, regular goals. Of course, that takes planning. And then as you're going along the journey, it takes reevaluating, course correction, that sort of stuff. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing I've put here is avoiding comparison.
Yeah.
Because my life and your life are going to look radically different. There might be
Yes.
similarities, but the truth is, I'm not called to live your life. I'm called to live my life.
That's right.
Where we've
Right.
got to stay on point and go, the Bible talks about running your race well. Like,
Mm.
what's my race? Because my race is going to look a little different to Des and Fred,
Mm.
Tom, and Jeff. Like, what's my race?
Yes.
What's the things in my heart that I want these goals to be for me, that I feel like God's leading me towards? And then keep my eye on that. Celebrate Des's wins, be with Des in the losses, but that doesn't detract me from where I'm meant to be heading.
No, exactly. And that flows down into the second one, which is each day. So
Right.
being deliberate and being intentional each day. And we talked before about spending time in prayer, spending time reading scripture, contemplating, meditating, whatever that looks like in your world. Have a set time to do that. So have a routine. First thing in the morning, waking up, listen to worship music, whatever that is in your world, whatever gives you the best start to the day.
Yeah.
And then that flows right through the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's good.
I mean, there's well-known documented benefits of having a good morning routine, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like for you, whether it's exercise, whether it's prayer, whatever that may be. Having the morning routine, affirmations, whatever it may be, prioritizing tasks for the day so that
Yeah.
you're on point, making a to-do list, sticking with it. And also just quickly, Des, I want to throw in journaling, because I've been journaling
Yes.
for a lot of time. I find journaling either at the beginning of the day to set some things in my head, or at the end of the day to offload some stuff out of my head,
Yeah.
is a really, really beneficial
That's a
process.
really good reminder during the day, because if you put something down in writing at the beginning of the day, it'll stay with you all day.
Correct. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a real positive thing to do. Now, the next one is about marriage. And since I am not married, I need to leave that one to you to talk about.
Nice handball. Well, look, I mean, this is generic things, and it's none of this is difficult. It's just thought and intentionality. Making our spouse a priority, making our marriage a priority.
Yeah.
Making time to connect daily. Initiating regular date nights. When was the last time you took your wife
Wow.
out?
That's so
Without
important.
her organizing it, or without it being a dual thing, you maybe just surprised her and said, "Hey, darling, be home by whatever tonight, or be ready by whatever, and the rest is up to me. I've got some plans."
Yeah.
Regular date nights. Non expressing their love language. Do you know what speaks to her heart? Are you
Yes.
doing that on a regular basis? Do you know her love language even? What is the way that communicates your love to her in a way that she receives?
Yeah.
What am I doing on a daily basis? Am I writing little notes? Am I doing flowers once a week? I don't know, whatever it may be. Just, do I go up and show physical affection, just
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
cuff?
Can
When
be
was the
that
last time I
simple.
genuinely told her that I loved her, for no other
Yeah.
reason, for doing nothing else, just to say, you know what, I think you're amazing and I love you. Like,
Mm.
am I being intentional with that? Am I sowing
Yeah.
little things into my marriage on
Because you
a
never know the
daily
impact that
basis?
will have in your partner's life. It can have an amazing impact.
Well, somebody always said, like, and it stuck with me. It's like when you make little deposits into a bank account.
Yeah.
Period
Yeah.
of time, you don't put a huge chunk in often. It's little drips and drabs here and
Yeah.
there, but over
Yeah.
the course of whatever, it builds up to this account. And it's if you just make little deposits into your marriage and into your spouse
Mm.
every single day, that's going to fill the love tank back up. And then, guys,
Yeah.
when you're looking for the main prize, and we all know what I'm talking about here, you're more likely to get it because you're not just expecting the main prize without actually having done some work in the
Yeah, and just on that topic, can I suggest on that issue, go back and listen to the podcast from Brian Andrew, and he talked clear and plain
Yes.
about that aspect of marriage. And the next one, of course, is a natural byproduct of marriage, which is we're parents.
Yes.
And so, I mean, do we take time for our kids? I mean, I had the most amazing dad, but I still remember on a Saturday night, he'd come back, he'd been working all day, he'd come back, I'd be in the backyard kicking a football, and
Mm.
I would say, Dad, will you kick a football with me? And he was just too tired. Now, I'm
Mm.
not judging my dad in any way because he was a wonderful father, but
Mm.
it's amazing how those little things stay in your mind. And so be present, be active with your children, do small things with them,
Mm.
have date nights with your daughter, go
Mm.
fishing with your son, whatever it looks like, and be consistent. Have
Yeah.
that connection. Be a friend to your children.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think another thing, Des, as well, and this is not necessarily a big time thing, but just take an interest in what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like with my daughter, for example, I had to learn about Korean boy bands for a season because she
Right.
was into BTS and Korean music. And I mean, this was not an interest to me, but I took an interest because it was important to her. And these are things you can do, like, for example, when you're
Yeah.
chatting in the car on the way to school or the school drop off, pick up, whatever it may be, or extracurricular stuff. You've got 15 minutes in the car, taking extra time to put your kids to bed, pray with them, talk to them. If you're doing some of the chores around the house together, it's an opportunity for you just to engage in a bit of conversation and go, how was school? What's happening?
Yeah.
Hey, how's that thing going that you're doing for school? Or, how you finding how's your basketball coming along? I don't know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but show an interest in your kids' lives.
Yeah. Why don't you come and help me make dinner? It
Yeah.
could be anything. We'll
Yeah.
rush through the last few because
Yeah.
they are important. One of them is our friendships. So you
Mm.
got your family, you got your kids, then you got your friends. Choose your friends wisely. Choose your friends deliberately. Choose your friends that will sow into your world and will help you grow as a Christian person.
So this is, I'm going to quickly just bounce off that, Des, and say this is actually one of my biggest bugbears in life, with friends, because we are all, and I'm going to get my phone, hold on, we are all super attached to these
Yeah.
things, right? And
Yeah.
we all have these things in our hands a lot more than we would probably like to admit. And yet we don't often use them for connection, for true
Yeah.
connection.
Wow. That's a good point.
And honestly, we can sit read or unread for weeks with someone who we considered a friend and go like, are they getting back to me? Like, how
Yeah.
long do I wait for a response?
Yeah.
And this is where, for guys as well, if we don't initiate and take responsibility for that, we can do life on our own for a long, long time if we're waiting for someone to reach out to us. I'm
Mhm.
encouraging you to take initiative and being intentional with your friendships. And then when you actually get a coffee or a lunch or just whatever it is that you do, be intentional with your conversation. Don't
Yeah.
just sit surface. Go, hey man,
Yeah.
like you mentioned last time, something, it's kind of been bugging me. How's things? Are you okay? Is everything?
Yeah.
Can I pray for you?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything I can do for you? Being intentional with those conversations, and that I get is vulnerable and it's tricky, but that's really the depth of friendships that's going to carry you through life when people actually know who you are, what's happening, rather than just see the veneer that that you
Yeah.
think is the perfect show when the thing is falling down behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, let's not do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Let's not do
exactly.
that.
And the next one is in our workplace. And I'm reminded of Richard Fay. We talked to Richard Fay about work-life balance. And what he said was he made a deliberate decision that at 5 o'clock
Mm,
he was switching off. And I think that's a good message, a lesson I never learned when I was in the corporate world. But it is so important to get home in time for your kids and so forth, and
yeah.
to have that balance between work and home life.
Yeah.
Very important.
Growing up in your work, are you committed? Do you have a desire to improve? Are you a team player?
Yeah.
Do you go above and beyond, but still have healthy boundaries? That's all good stuff, Des.
Mm,
Finances, just quickly, realistic goals. Do you have realistic goals? Do you have any goals? Do you set a plan? Have you made a
mm.
budget? There's many people that don't even have a budget. You
That's
got to
right.
live within your means. You got to pay your bills on time. Stay focused, reduce unnecessary spending. And if you are a Christian, make sure that you're tithing. That's
Yes.
always a good starting point in your finances.
Mm,
Let's jump down to quickly, Days, because we are running out of time.
yeah.
Just want to quickly touch on health and mental health. Health,
Yes.
don't have to be killing yourself in the gym, but are you intentional with your health? Do you get out? Do you walk? Do you move it regularly? Are you thinking about what you're putting down your throat, what you're drinking? Are you staying hydrated? Do you limit alcohol? Do you take supplements if necessary? Do you
Mm.
try and
Yeah,
get good
they're all
sleep?
good.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not particularly motivated, can you find someone and link up with someone to get some motivation and accountability? Well, that's about it for this week's show on intentionality with Tim and Des. I encourage you to go back and have a listen to this at the website, momentumaustralia.org. And of course, Des, if somebody needs a chat or to explore this a little bit more, what do you recommend?
I recommend, well, a few things. I recommend going to our website because all our podcasts are all on there. And so you can re-listen to this conversation. And also don't forget, guys, don't do life on your own. If you need a safe and confidential conversation, 1-800-000-MEN between 7 a.m., 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 7 days a week. So that's really cool that you can reach out to them. And you can also contact us, help@momentumaustralia.org as well. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. Again, don't do life in isolation. If there's something you need to chat about, call the care line, 1-800-000-MEN. Reach out to us at momentumaustralia.org. And until next time, you look after yourselves. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for watching this week's show, and we hope you subscribe to Momentum so you can find out what's happening in the shows in the future.
Absolutely. And keep an eye on our website too. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find all of our shows and a whole heap of resources to help you on your journey. That is momentumaustralia.org.
Until next time, keep moving forward
with momentum.